accountability at all levels of governance. Capacity building. 2. The project will invest in empowering individuals and institutions with the knowledge and skills necessary to activate in democratic processes, by creating a well-informed and engaged citizenry. 3. Election monitoring and integrity. CopDem we play a crucial role in monitoring electoral processes, ensuring fairness, credibility, transparency in elections, and fostering trust in the democratic system. 4. Social cohesion and reconciliation. The project will strive to bridge divides, foster dialogue, and promote understanding among different groups in society, fostering a sense of national unity and solidarity. 5. Policy research and advocacy. CopDem will conduct research and analysis on various policy matters, providing evidence-based communications to policymakers to enhance democratic policies and ensure inclusive governance. 6. Promotion of human rights and rule of law. The project will actively work to protect and promote human rights and the rule of law, creating an environment where justice and fairness prevail. 7. Engagement with youth and marginalized groups. CopDem will actively engage with youth and marginalized communities and their participation in democratic processes and amplifying their votes in shaping the nation's future. In pursuit of these objectives, the CopDem project seeks to play a vital role in advancing democracy, peace, and prosperity with a vision of thriving nation built on the principles of unity, peace, and love for all citizens. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So that's CopDem. That's who we are and what we represent. So CopDem would always stand for the truth. CopDem would always stand for what we know is right. CopDem is all inclusive. And today, we have invited some very special personalities. They'll be talking to us about the state of the nation. You can agree with me that not so many of us are happy today. But what can we do? This is our country. We can't run away. But in all, justice must be served. And that is what we stand for. Thank you very much.
Very much, mighty Mrs. Osla. That was a wonderful one. Thank you very much, everyone. At this point in time, DJ, can you make some noise? Make some noise. When I take CopDem, you tell me, protect democracy. Did you hear me? When I say CopDem, what do you say? CopDem! CopDem! Yes, we're here to protect democracy. We're here to protect democracy. Thank you very much. Like you said, we have some invited guests here. They are going to talk to us about the state of the nation. We are going to hear what is happening. How are we going to protect this democracy? We have beautiful women out there. You understand? Our mommies, our daddies, they will talk to us today. And at this point in time, I don't want us to go around. I really want us to listen so that when we're returning back home, we have a message of hope to return back with. If you know you want to go back home with a message of hope from here today, can I hear you say, when I say CopDem, you say protect democracy. CopDem! CopDem! DJ. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Okay, one of our guest speakers will be talking to us now. I'm going to introduce her to us. DJ. She's no other person but our beautiful mama in the car. I love them. Do you know why I love them? When I see women, in this role, it gives me the positive vibe. And not just beautiful women. And you clap for our mommies up there. Clap for them because someday you'll be seated there. And you want somebody to clap for you, right? So can we just clapping? Keep clapping, keep clapping. So we're inviting. I'm going to invite our mommy, Mrs. Hawa Mustafa. She's a development policy analyst. Keep clapping for her. A practicing feminist. Clap for her as she comes on the podium. She'll be talking to us on keep clapping for her. Keep clapping for her. Keep clapping for her. Keep clapping for her. Mama, you are welcome. Mama, you are welcome. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Justice, the issue of democracy, and everything that we need to do to guide the democracy and our governance structure is very, very important. Yesterday afternoon, I was given a topic, and I think the subtitle is I'm supposed to speak on executive abuse of power and how this threatens the judiciary and, of course, in the long run, the democratic process. I started by looking at when we talk about abuse of power, especially when we say executive abuse of power. Exactly what do we mean? Because we need to understand it so that when we see it, we know it. And then we can also know, of course, when we know it, then we can also understand how to strategize around it. Some of the definitions I came across, simply say that when somebody on a seat of authority or power uses his or her position to do things to either manipulate, to coerce, to bully, or to intimidate people, particularly people who look up to him or her, in expectation of a certain action that adds value to their lives in any way. Hello. And that abuse of executive power is usually characterized by a poor management of office and resources. So those who use their position to bully, to threaten, to manipulate, to force you to take certain action that ordinarily you will not be willing to take, to intimidate you, to threaten you, they always have a certain characteristic, which is that they have a poor management skill, which is that they also have a poor sense of managing resources that is betrothed to them, that gives them the power or authority in that office. It also means that they lack competence, or they have insufficient knowledge on how to use the power, the authority that they have to add value to the people over whom they claim that authority. It also means very critically that these people are very arrogant, because there's a difference between being proud and being arrogant. It means that these people are very arrogant, and there's inefficiency in capacity to do the right thing. It is about misuse of privileges. Most critically, it is of all these, it leads to violation of laws and institutional disobedience. So when a person who coerces, who forces you to do something, who threatens you, who intimidates you, who sends fears on their subjects or on the community or on the people over whom they govern or over whom they are supposed to exercise authority, and that authority is expected to ordinarily improve on the lives of those people. If you use all these kinds of negative characteristics, it means that you have certain fear in you. You have certain low capacity in you to understand how to relate with those people and give them the value that they need, that make them to either advertently or inadvertently entrust that power and authority on you. And what happens is that you use the state, the instrument, of power, which usually is the law, which usually is rules and regulations that are supposed to guide the conduct of that office. You use that, you manipulate those rules, you manipulate the Constitution, for instance, you manipulate laws, you manipulate regulations, to exercise that negative power in such a negative way. Those who abuse executive power can be tyrannical, they can be called dictatorial, and they are impatient with criticism. While they use emotions sometimes, sentiments, to intimidate, renegade, and punish those who they perceive as personal enemies of the system or of that space to which they are supposed to have authority. They use their executive power to control and manipulate instruments of the state, such as law, like I said, and of course, also they use the military as well to perpetuate and defend their abuse of justice. They also use the process of law, the judiciary. Executive abuse of power is akin to dictatorship, and it lacks and a lack of competence to understand what democracy is about, what human rights are about, and what human relations are about. It's about it is about the lack of the capacity to appreciate how you can use your power and authority to add positive value to the people around you, without necessarily circumventing legal and constitutional processes. So, this basically is what defines abuse of power, executive abuse of power, and characterizes those people who do that. Now, let's come down to Nigeria. Or before then, what is the impact of the abuse of power? When the abuse or executive abuse of power is very common, or it's prevalent, what happens? What happens is that generally the subject or the people around whom that power of coercion is impacted upon. You find a lot of issues around human rights are abused, and when human rights of the people are abused, there's a psychological impact, effect on the people whose rights are abused. It can have a way of demoralizing you. It can have a way of weakening you, and at the same time, it can also have a way of also strengthening you to want to take action to defend yourself. And sometimes the way you take action to defend yourself might not always necessarily take a legal process or take a process that a legislative or so sometimes when people are forced to take action due to a high-handedness of an extreme use of executive abuse of power, you find also lawlessness and restiveness becomes pervasive in such a community. So, for instance, when workers, are not allowed or are not allowed to freely associate, freely mobilize, and they are also denied their rights, and when they do everything legally possible, the owner or the person who wields authority and power uses the privilege of that his or her office to mangle, the power or the exercise of the rights of the workers. Sometimes what you see is a kind of people just go outside the law to do what they want to do. So sometimes when you don't allow for legal protest, for instance, you give room to illegal protest, and it can come up in any way. If an organized group is not is muzzled up, you use judiciary, you use laws, you use your power to coerce, to intimidate, to threaten, and so on, and you cow them to a corner. The ill feelings that is existing in that society you have not killed it. You have not been able to checkmate it. What will happen is that in another way, people express that anger, that authority. And so sometimes in Nigeria, when we see things like, we say, the IPOB, the Egbesi boys, Boko Haram, banditry. Of course, the action of these groups or some of these individuals might not, definitely, is not something that ordinarily you want to praise, you want to sanction, you want to see as something that is adding positive value to the society. However, you also need to look at what are those forces around impunity, around abuses of office, denied them certain privileges that has also questioned their expression of human rights, their expression of freedom, that forces them to guerrilla tactics, to express anger. Provisions of executive power in Nigeria. President had so, for instance, Section 5 of the Nigerian Constitution, executive powers of the Federation shall be vested in the President of the Constitution. So we operate an executive presidential system. However, that executive power of the president is also controlled and limited within the boundaries of the provisions of the Constitution. And so the provision, so when we say yes, the president has executive power, the executive power is within boundaries. But oftentimes there are misinterpretations of the president or a governor or a holder of an authority or power can execute powers based on the privileges of his or her office. This is why oftentimes, when there is a coup d'etat, the first thing the military does is to set aside the Constitution. Because the Constitution has information, has limitations, has directives, or has provisions around how you use power and the extent to which you use power and what you do with the power. The Constitution generally, there is no Constitution that guides military regime, for instance. That is why they don't have laws. Under military regime, you have decree. But under a civilian regime, you have laws. And you have the Constitution. You have regulatory powers. You have institutional powers that regulate, that administer, and so on and so forth. And that is what makes democracy democracy. It is not democracy simply because in power. It is democracy. Democracy is supposed to be guided by certain laws, certain provisions. There are power and to what extent to exercise the power. So successive regimes have severally issued executive powers in Nigeria, oftentimes with extra constitutional or extrajudicial implications. So because they say there's executive presidency, and then they say that the Constitution, and then they just look at one portion of the Constitution that says you have executive power, and leave out that portion that says even this executive power is within the provision of the Constitution. It's like the provision of that says that you can marry 1, 2, 3, or 4 wives, but then leaves out that you should do justice. And the only thing they look at, they pick, I can marry 1, I can marry 2, 3, or 4. What about the area that says do justice? And it goes further to say that you are human beings, you cannot possibly do justice. The implication could be that in terms of interpretation, you have been given the carrot and you have been given the stick. Marry 2, 3, or 4. You think you can? Then you are human. The provision is you must do justice. And so if you cannot do justice, don't go there. Hello? But then they interpret it and say, well, it has also said that we are human, I cannot do justice, so it's not possible for me to do justice. So that is how, executive powers also interpret the Constitution. They interpret the Constitution in a way that also suits them. And so I just want to quickly go to certain examples, specific examples of how powers have been abused or are being abused by executive, authorities in Nigeria. First of all, I look at the issue of press attack. There's the media here. Oftentimes, the Constitution talks about freedom of expression and freedom of association. Is there really freedom of expression and freedom of association? There's a caveat. Even a governor can decide to clamp down on an organization. We have seen, trade unions in some states being so proscribed, or something like, we have abolished, or something that we do not recognize or refuse to give them to operate according of the law. So we have seen places, media particularly has been attacked. and which goes against the constitutional provision of freedom of association and expression. So goes against the Freedom of Information Act that talks about how individuals or organizations should have access to certain key information that is of public interest largely. We have seen how the media has often been hounded, and I have so many examples, you know. The Sahara reporters are so worried, you know. Many of us are very familiar with the issue. There's Abba Jalingo, you know, who was incarcerated for so many, I think about 2 years in the South. And there are so many other people like that. There are so many other cases like that. I have some of these names here. And apart from that, we also have had even the issue of police brutality and military brutality. They say the police is your friend. But the police your friend. They say you can freely take cases and approach the police and make a report. But sometimes citizens are even scared of making reports because the police have the power to manipulate information against you. See, a woman is raped, for instance. Rape is something that is against the law. You go to the police and the police will now, you know, put it around using power. How were you dressing? Where did you go to? What were you doing close to the man? What were you doing in that house? How can you say your husband raped you? Hello. So we see this, all these are manipulation because you are the authority. I have come to look upon you for certain salvation, for respite, for succor. So you manipulate the power of that office, the authority you have to protect me. You now use it to threaten me, to coerce me, to frighten me, to force me to do certain things that ordinarily I should not do. We have issues of extrajudicial killings. Before, during the time of Obasanjo, we had the thing around the Odi massacre. You know, under Jonathan, we had another massacre that also happened somewhere around the Oji River. Hello. Then, of course, we have so many other things that are happening that the military, the DSS, the SSS arbitrarily arrest people. We say people disappear from their homes. It has happened to the media. It has happened to trade union leadership. It has happened to student union leaders. It has happened to activists, including even political activists. You may not necessarily like what people are doing, but there is a law. When you refuse to follow the law, when you circumvent the provisions of the constitutions and the law, to do things, extrajudicial activities or punishment or whatever, then you have abused executive power, you have abused the power of that office. You have taken advantage of the privilege that office offers you to do certain things, to have certain control, and you take excessive control. Order people to be killed, the military goes to say shoot at sight. Shoot at sight is an abuse of power because it is against the law. Then, of course, one of the most common things is the disobedience of court orders. And this way has also made the judiciary to be compromised. When you disobey court orders, and it's all across the 3 tiers of government, including MDAs. A ministry says a worker has happened, something has happened, they take you to court, and the court order to say, reinstate this person. And for months on, you refuse to reinstate. Because you think you are the power, you are the minister or the permanent secretary, and you enjoy, you know, the support of the presidency. We have seen governors do that. The presidency, in fact, the presidency is particularly very notorious for not obeying court injunctions. A number of samples that we can give prior to the 2023 election, post-2023 election. And then some of the other things that they do again is around, okay, I've talked about suppressing freedom of speech and the right to protest, which are part of constitutional provisions or some of the other laws that we have also subscribed to. Then there are also the issues of state government, like I said, it's not just the presidency, even the state government. Sometimes the state governors are even more notorious, with use of abuse of executive powers, like issues around land grabbing, demolitions. These are very common things. Something that also talk against, prevents people, from living their social life and having their own freedom of economic activity. Then finally, I'm concluding by saying that executive power is executive lawlessness. In fact, we should give it. It is executive what we call maybe vandalism. It is about misuse of privileges. Kills democracy. It destroys the judicial. It creates pervasive lawlessness, because once you start it at the judiciary, you groups thinking that, okay, if the government can do it like this, I can also do it like that. I mean, look at recently, an individual threatens a whole governor of a state. Nothing has happened. An individual comes to YouTube, social media, brandishes a machine gun, and nothing is happening. Part of because you enjoy the privilege of somebody who has a power, and that by extension gives you the privilege to abuse power. So what do we need to do? I say that what we need to do is we need to organize. First of all, we need to educate ourselves, understand where the issues of what constitutes executive power, and what really determines an abuse of power. Once we understand, we have good knowledge, then we need to organize, we need to mobilize. I want to see CopDem identifying these different areas of executive abuse of power, list them out and strategize around organizing, mobilizing people, citizens around them. And very importantly, let us consistently use the courts. Even where we feel that there are certain things that are being compromised by the judiciary, we cannot stop. We must mobilize, we must make a lot of noise. Sitting in front of a way to become lawyers. We must all find a way, not necessarily by going to school, but by understanding some basic things that are included in the provisions of the Constitution and in some of our other statutory documents. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Take clapping for her. This is, in short, is beautiful. Our democracy has been vandalized. I picked that one. And we'll get it right again. Thank you very much, Ma, for this. We appreciate you. Okay. The next speaker, Mr. DJ. A little noise, please.
government doesn't care about you. Be it politically, in education, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of even the health system. At some point in time, Nigeria happened to you. Look at people in school, there are strikes. Nigeria happened to them. People go to the hospitals and they don't get proper health care. Nigeria happened to them. When children are traveling from one place to the other and they don't get there safely because of bad roads and potholes, and fathers die because Nigeria happened to us. You're traveling and you're afraid, your heart is in your mouth because you don't know if you're going to be kidnapped. It's because Nigeria happened to us. Nigeria is a very beautiful country, and I want to be quoted as saying, beauty is Nigeria. When you look at all our different faces, different cultures, we are good people generally. But like I said, Nigeria happened to us, and it would seem as though our government doesn't really care about us. I say this because even just in recent times, we've been plunged into what everybody's on, everybody's subsidy removal. I deliberately asked, not even my topic, we haven't gotten there yet, but I'll be fast. I asked for is it on? I asked for a projection of a woman. Can we see her? What do we see? I see a baby on her back. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? Yes or no? I'm right. I can see her carrying load, heavy load. I can see her walking with a certain type of determination in her face. I can also see her holding the flag of the Nigerian Labour Congress. To her, that probably seems like the only freedom of expression that she could express herself yesterday. Clearly, she's not rich, is she? Does she look like someone who's rich? I want us to interact. I don't want to be the only one talking. Nigeria happened to her. And if you look closely, the determination on her face to reach a certain destination where there is hope, where her life can be better. If you ask that woman, she's probably not even thinking about herself. She's probably thinking about that child on her back. That's why she would leave her menial job. Maybe she fries akara. Maybe she sells moi moi. Maybe she just sells rice on the street. She would leave that and go and protest because she wants her child to breathe. Let the poor. So my topic today is violence and election. Revving up participation of women in the electoral process. But when I got here, I don't know why the struggle to breathe became what I renamed what I'm going to talk about. We cannot keep doing the same things over and over again and expect different results. Thankfully, this is a democracy and our voices must count. With the last administration, we were told that 133 million Nigerians were plunged into poverty. And the World Bank also stated, yes, removal of subsidy, we all know that it was imminent, had to happen. But we would have expected that the government do it in stages, in batches, so that you wean the people off gently. I'm glad I can see many of us who are mothers here. I'm a mother, and I was very pro 6 months breastfeeding. As in, my child, there was no water for 6 months, strictly breastfeeding. We know how we wean our children. We don't just do it like that, step by step. Because the child's stomach will just be eroded if you introduce solids immediately. So you don't just take out the subsidy and erode the stomachs, erode the bank accounts of Nigerians, just like that, step by step. Nobody's saying don't take it out, but there should have been a cushioning effect to show that the government really cares about us. It would interest you to know that the World Bank said the removal of subsidy would now include 7 million plus Nigerians into adding to the 133 million. So we're talking about, approximately 120 million Nigerians plunged into a life of hardship, a life of uncertainty, a life where you don't know where you get the next meal from. And those type of situations give rise to insecurity, give rise to crime. Those type of situations give rise to out of school children. It will interest us to know that about 90% of the time, and I want all of us to look back at our lives, and let's be real here. A woman is more likely to be pulled out of school to be a carer, to be a nurse, even though she doesn't have qualifications, to be a cook, because maybe somebody at home is sick. I lie? There are times that we've had to leave what we're doing to go and tend to family members and uncle, whether nuclear or extended. So a woman's life is more likely, 90% more likely, to be interrupted than that of her counterparts as a man. And it's something that we need to look into, because I think the solutions are easy, but do we have the political will? Do our leaders have the leadership will? COVID taught us many things, that you can do school remotely. So, for example, you must take out your daughters from school. Then why not let her have class online so that she's not missing out on an education? It is said very, very clearly, it is said that train up, educate, empower, I'm paraphrasing, a woman, and you have trained up, empowered, and educated a nation. Just one woman. That is how powerful we women are. I think this is a great time to give ourselves a round of applause for just being women. Women are courageous. We saw the case of the vice chancellor in the Federal University, Minna, where she refused to announce what was not there. So far, I think she's the only person that stood against what she knew was wrong. She stood against it and said, I will not announce. She did not allow pressure. So women are courageous. Women are more likely to be diplomatic in situations than men. A woman is most likely to use diplomacy, to use a softer voice, to use a softer way to get her point across, to get the message across, and to get what is needed. So there is power in women. INEC registered over 93.4, if I'm not wrong, registered voters for the 2023 elections. And it's somewhere in my notes, but if my head tells me correctly, about 44 million plus were women. So if you divide that, 93 divided by 44 million, 93 million divided by 44 million, women almost hit 50%, almost 50% of registered voters. But then what happened? There was voter apathy. Out of 93 million plus voters, only about 24.9 million people came out to vote. Why is the question that we must ask. Like I said, the willingness of our leadership to support women has been very low. When you look at the 10th Assembly, only 3 women made it to the Senate. When you look at the 9th Assembly, I think it was just about, was it 9 or 11 women that participated. So when women came up with a bill in 2016 talking about gender and women inclusivity, let me, so that I'm not misquoted. Gender and equal opportunity. It was shut down. And naturally so, because we didn't have enough women to represent, enough women to have a voice. Anybody who knows what democracy is, it's a game of numbers. So when you have just 11 women, when you have just 7 women and 109 men, obviously their votes will override ours. We were not asking for equality with men. We were asking for just the opportunity. So basic, and that is something, because I got a lot of people saying, oh, women want to be like men. They want, no. Some of us who were raised better than that, there's some of us who think differently. But if there's an opportunity, there should be the level playing ground. So if that girl is intelligent, if that girl has a bright future and has shown herself an exceptional person, she should have the opportunity to continue. That's all we're asking for. We're not asking to be equal. Well, I know I'm not. But it is important that girls are given the necessary opportunity to flourish. Tradition, culture, some people will call it religion, have come to change those narratives. But then again, the more of us that stick together and bind together, we have the opportunity to change our narrative and to change what our realities are. One step at a time, one voice at a time, coalition at a time. Obviously, we know that we need the support of our families, both male and female. Women need to mentor each other better. Women need to support each other more. And so men should also do so. It will surprise you to know, many women don't know this, and they've kept this secret from us a long time. Many women don't know that we have the highest spending power in the world. Women might not be the ones who are in the offices. We might not be the ones who are heading certain boards, even though women have started making good trajectory in leaps and bounds. But the truth of the matter is, women have the highest spending power in the world. And I want to take a poll. How many men go to the market? How many physically go to the market? Okay, I agree that you do, but do you do it every day? Who does the negotiations? Women, most of the time, a man will say, here is the money, this is part of what I'm giving you, go to the market. She does the negotiating. A lot of the time, even the school fees, women are the ones who are given the responsibility. Even if the husband has said, okay, this is the 20,000 naira, this is the 1,000 naira. She's the one given. So women do not realize how powerful they are in the market space. All over the world, we have more women entrepreneurs. And that is what keeps any economy going. That Mekose, that woman selling akara, she's very important. That small scale business is very important. Most have more women who are teachers. I remember when my son was much younger, it was a principle of the school that up until they are in year 4, they don't have male teachers. because it has been found in research that when children are taught by women from nursery school, from play class all the way to year 4, the children tend to do better. Why? Because women are natural nurturers. Nobody teaches a 3-year-old girl to hold a baby and want to back her doll. It comes naturally to majority of women. So there's a lot of power. There's a lot in in what the future holds for women. And with that, I'd like to round up so that somebody else can come and take the podium. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Hope. Yes, I heard somebody saying yes there. That's a good one. Thank you. Okay, without wasting much time, we're going to introduce our next speaker to you. He's no other person but Dr. Danjuma Garuba. He's a spokesperson for today's event, and he's going to be the one to take the press communique for today. A round of applause for him. A round of applause. A round of applause. Are we clapping? A man of excellence in the house. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone in attendance here. My fellow CopDemites, great Nigerians here in attendance, ladies of the press, I have the honor and privilege to welcome you today to this August occasion in August. Indeed, is the first maiden World Press Conference organized by CopDem and LCSF, Labor and Civil Society Front. Permit me to go through the communique based on the presentations made by our respective resource people. I wish to present you the communique of CopDem today, 3rd August 2023. We are not recruited by any party, person, or personal interest, but by our patriotism and the love of our dear nation. We are a pro-democratic and non-partisan association. It is also the exercise of our fundamental human rights to freedom of expression and press, and freedom to lawful and peaceful assembly, that today we gather here to mount this federal record of the entire both local and national rights. There is common method and common evaluation of the report that the election was characterized by political and non-political malpractice. What I mean by political malpractice is political by state and non-state actors. With this, people and civilians deserve a place use or abuses generally across from all these tiers and arms of government, and which is telling today on the lives of the ordinary Nigerians. We will say this, that any threat on the judiciary is a threat to democracy. This is an important tenet of democracy. The judiciary must be free, must be independent, and then for rule of law to work, we must see it being operated, meaning justice must be done, and not only done, it must be seen to be done. It must be seen to be done. And unfortunately today, no one here today will beat his chest and say that we believe in the autonomy, we believe in the independence of our judiciary. Now, permit me to go through some of the key things we have highlighted for Nigerians and the world to know. First, we have seen it that a senior advocate of Nigeria in a democratic dispensation will tell the world that if the judges uphold justice, there is going to be anarchy. Why not say that if the justices or the judges now do injustice, there will be anarchy? If not in Nigeria, where would you have a senior advocate saying that when the judges do the right thing, there is going to be anarchy? CopDem and all well-meaning Nigerians are against these kinds of politically incorrect statements at the highest level. And based on this, let us recall on the legal profession itself, the presidency, and all the arms of government to come together and condemn these approaches and condemn such utterances before our own judges, whose life might be put into danger if perchance they take what that very lawyer is saying, because it's a democratic and it's a threat. It's undemocratic and it is a threat. Now, more so, not so long ago, last week, there was a support group or a coalition of support groups of APC held in Kaduna who came out to tell the world that only God can remove Tinubu from office. Now, for the media itself to carry this is a threat to our democracy. Why do we have a judiciary? Why do we have the election petition tribunals? And why do we have all the tiers of hierarchy of courts in Nigeria? It's for justice to be done and be seen to be done. So, for any group to be given a voice to come to tell the world that only God can remove the president from his position is simply anti-democratic, and in fact this should be labeled as treason, because our constitution is the supreme law operating in Nigeria, and then we are one nation under God, but God has given us the instruments of the constitution to be used, and then the relevant laws to be applied for justice to be done and be seen to be done. On this also, we urge on all Democrats, compatriots, CopDemites, and all who are interested in an egalitarian Nigeria and society to condemn these approaches and to condemn these utterances as undemocratic. Our law enforcement agencies, too, are involved in this, because everyone must play their role, their roles according to the game for democracy to work. Now, it is actually embarrassing for Nigeria, here right in the center of the Federal Capital Territory, for us to see two law enforcement agencies, fight each other, trying to take custody of a man who is alleged to be in the possession of firearms. And not firearms, I should use maybe in the plural sense, one or two guns. But then in the same society, in the same country, you have a bandit brandishing weapons of mass destruction and threatening genocide against a particular tribe, and yet pronouncing or claiming to be supporting a democratically elected president. With this is, I would say, an utter embarrassment to our democracy. And then that very fracas, that unfortunate incident happened right in the premises of the court, and nothing happened. Now, whether we like it or not, this is not saying well for our democracy, and we must all come out to condemn it with our loudest voices, and that's what we are doing in CopDem. Now, again, we equally urge our lawmakers to consider making relevant legislations to support our democracy, because without relevant, meaningful, and yes, relevant legislations, our democracy is in danger. Now, and especially that judiciary that we are focusing today on is under threat. Now, we are all aware, and it is all over the social media, that a senator in the chambers of the Senate is making these revelations that he had influenced his wife on many occasions to pass judgment or to be of favor to some of his friends and colleagues. Now, for that to also come out, and even in the most noble of all our chambers, arm of our government, I think it does not say well of our democracy, and it means our justices and judges, the judiciary entirely, is under threat. It is also important for us to say that we are concerned too by the plight of Nigerians today as it is. That certainly we all know from the background that we have looked at, and why even the Nigerian Labour Congress is on protest. It's threatening an industrial action, indefinite one, because of the way things are going. Now, know that it's a major problem. We know these things happen over time. But this time around, with the incumbent government, in less than 30 days, we witnessed the salary increment for the president, vice president, and other political holders to about 114%. Now, if these are people who have been elected to represent, to serve the people, why would they start serving themselves? It does not, resonate with common sense. Now, for us in CopDem, we believe this is very, very and highly selective. They should have started with the ordinary man on the streets, and that's our position. If the subsidy is going to be removed, now remember that these are people who are paid on world-class salaries and allowances, while our civil servants in both the private sector and the public sector are paid peanuts that can hardly take them home. Now, within this context and after the removal of the subsidy, nobody is talking about a take-home payment. We are rather talking about, I will borrow from you. Take me out. It will not even take you out, let alone for you to go to the place of work and then have a take-home back. It's no longer the same. So this is unfortunate, and we call on the executive to reconsider this position and do something as a matter of urgency to bring out the ordinary people who voted for this government out of the condition that they are in. Now, again, you are all aware that our democracy today, as it is not working for us, but it's virtually working for some people. Now, we want it to work for everyone. That is our voice. Let us all benefit from our common resources, our common institutions, or what we locally or popularly call dividends of democracy. Now, we want to urge on the executive who have the power to actually make things work, to consider all the necessary infrastructures that are supposed to make Nigeria a place to live. Our roads are in what they are. They should not be as bad as our democracy. Our hospitals that should reflect our own collective concern for our health sector should be in the shape that reflects the well-being of our democracy. The point is, if you look into any aspect or any sector of government and whatever you see in it is a mirror and reflection of what the democracy is in. If you will say that Nigerians are crying, then our democracy too is crying. If our roads are in bad shape, then our democracy is in bad shape. There cannot be two ways about it. So, I urge on all Nigerians not to relent in their effort to have a voice. And at CopDem level or with CopDem, you have a voice. We would continue to hold press conferences from time to time in order to talk to Nigerians, encourage them to be law-abiding, and as well as talk to those in government to also be law-abiding. And that is what rule of law is. No one is above the law. Without the law, there will be no democracy. Without a functional democracy, there will be chaos. And what we do not want, that is why in CopDem we stand to be the protectors of Nigerian democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our communique for this maiden World Press Conference on the state of the nation's democracy and the threat to our judiciary. What we are saying lastly, in consonance with the theme of today's World Conference, is to say that let the judiciary breathe. Let us see the rule of law, which must be done and be seen to be done. Thank you all, and thank you all. God bless.
Thank you very much. Let the judiciary breathe. Great democracy. And let the judiciary breathe. Yes, that's the one. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Without wasting more time, we want to invite our next speaker. It's not going to take much of our time. I'm enjoying it because there's a lot of take-home from here. Hope for Nigeria. Yes, there's a lot of take-home. He's no other person but Mr. Omawale Okuni, popularly called Bertrand Sheikh. Yes, our own. Clap for him. Keep clapping. As a leader of the people's struggle for a better Nigeria, that's who he is. He is the head of the National Secretariat of Labor and Civil Society Forums, LCSF, as well as the head of the Coordinating Center of the United Action of Civil Society of Nigeria. Are you clapping? Keep clapping. And lastly, he is the Director General of the Child First Movement in Nigeria. We're glad to have you, sir. Keep clapping as the work is over. Thank you, Lord.
Yes, Nigerian people. Greatest of the greatest of the greatest Nigerian people. Well, I'm standing before you as the representative of the Labor and Civil Society Front. You saw us yesterday all over the country trying to defend our democracy.
Yes, sir.
That was essentially what we did, to tell the government that power belongs to the people.
Yes.
And that the citizens have rights to breathe or to exercise their power as their government. The citizens are the sovereign in any country.
Yes, of course.
Sovereignty belongs to our properly